found the Keep It Real Ro podcast, where Ro talks about real life on real terms. This is real talk about real things happening around you in your life. Now, let's get started, Ro.
Welcome. You found the Keep It Real Ro Show podcast. I'm your host, Ro, and today, wow, I'm just really excited for today. It's because, as I talked about in a previous show, it's about your worth and really knowing where your worth comes from. If you try to find it in your job, you're not going to find it. If you try to find it in someone else, you probably won't find it. But you will find it within yourself, and more importantly, through the Word of God. And today, I've got Miss Aspen Jade in studio with me today. Hello, Miss Jade.
Hello, Mr. Rowe.
And we're going to continue talking about worth, but we're going to get, like I said, this show is all about keeping it real, and we're going to get real about today's show. Now, Miss Aspen Jade has got quite a story, and I hope that we're able to just share it with everyone as best as we possibly can. So, well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Miss Jade.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's
Sure.
my first interview, so this is awesome. I grew up in a small town, so I came from a town that was about 10,000 max people, very small. And I think that sets up the whole worth value because you are constantly around everybody and what they're doing. So everybody knows everything about each other. You know, if you make a mistake, if you make something good, like everyone just knows the entire outline of your life. And for me, I was destined, I felt like, to come to the city and kind of get away from that. And I realized in this worth journey that we're talking about that was actually me running from who I was. That was me running from the hurt and the pain. And I thought if I was in a different location, then I would be worth something, that it would change that worth value in myself. So when I came to this city, it's very different.
Oh, yeah.
Very different. Didn't know what a freeway was. Got lost for like 6 hours one time in Los Angeles. And I, went to film school. I got into the wrong crowd of friends, really. I got into a really bad relationship. And I think that was when this entire worth and value perspective of myself came into being, because this was like the defining moment of how much I had lacked value that I thought,
Wow. Now, you're saying that you had a pretty rough relationship.
Yes.
I say this is that you can share as much or as little as you want about that. So,
Right. Well, I think the relationship started out with, I already believed lowly of myself. So it was, I already had a low self-esteem. I was going through some eating disorders. I just saw myself as just this worthless person. I kind of just lost this hope in myself.
Okay, now I'm sitting with Miss Jade. Miss Jade she's a lovely young lady. To me, I'm saying how would you? Why would you? What caused that struggle to occur?
That struggle before the relationship was really because stuff that I went through in school. I really got bullied in school. I really was teased a lot, made fun of a lot. And because I didn't really enjoy myself, I would live off of the acceptance of other people. So if I didn't see that I was being accepted, I'd be like, well, I need to change this about myself, or change, the way I dress, the way I talk, the way I eat. Like everything has to change for me to fit into that clique, because I was very alone and very isolated. And I think a lot of it stemmed from, just me being different. I had a stutter issue. Here I am talking on the podcast.
Sounds perfectly fine. But
I was scared to speak in front of people. I was very timid. I think when I was 6 years old, I was in swim classes, and a very real moment here, I was inappropriately touched by our swim teacher, and so were the other girls. And I think that really closed me off from opening up, because that was the first time, I knew something was wrong. And so for me, when I went back to school, it was like I felt different. And I think I isolated myself, and in turn that left me being a target for bullying. Because I just wanted to be alone, or I didn't know how to fit in, or, I didn't really know how to talk about something like that. So I think my worth and value at that time was based off of me just being there. And I think one point actually that I remember is a guy in school. He would tell me, you would be a really easy piece of what because you're ugly. And so for me, that when that happened, and then on top of the thing happening with my sewn teacher, I thought, well, it's because of the way I look. If I could just fix the way that I looked physically, that would bring the acceptance and worth that I craved for. And these eating disorders got so bad that I started being jealous of even my own mom. And because she was way skinnier than me. She was, had 2 kids, and she was like 10 times smaller than me. And it got to this point where I was comparing, I was degrading other people. I was jealous of other people that had the qualities that I thought were worthy and valuable. And because I saw so much lack in myself, I would start piecing these identities of other people. And every time I looked in the mirror, I could never be that image. I could never be that person.
Wow. If you're just picking up on this podcast, this is the Keep It Real Ro podcast. I'm your host, Ro, and in studio today I've got Miss Aspen Jade. And if you want to hit me up, you can check me out on social media at Keep It Real _Ro on Instagram. Also the same, Keep It Real _Ro on Twitter, and also on Facebook, Keep It Real Ro Show. If you want to hit me up via email, it's simple, keepitrealro@gmail.com. Wow, I mean, Aspen, that's hard for me to take in right now, because it's those things that really cause, I mean, you're trying to find your worth as you're growing up, and it's not really that you're finding your worth per se, but it's more of you just being a kid, just enjoying life.
Yeah.
But then it's those outside influences or those instances in your life that really just shape and then change how you see yourself. Well, I want to let you continue on that.
Yeah, and I really think it causes you to see a distortion. And there's actually, we call it body dysphoric disorder, we call it eating disorder, we call it all these different things. And I really think it's based in the brokenness of identity. It's based in the brokenness of self-esteem, and really just finding and being okay with who you are. I know this, obviously, all of those led to, me already seeing a distortion of myself set me up for somebody to validate that,
Right.
and I didn't have control of myself or my identity. So I thought, well, if I give it to somebody, maybe they can figure it out because I'm too broken to put the pieces together. So maybe they could figure out what I'm worth in life.
Right.
And so when you place something that's meant to be consistent, which is your identity, into inconsistent hands, it can get very volatile to where you live an inconsistent life. And I think for me, going into a relationship that ended up being that way, really was the defining factor of this is how low I see myself, that I'm willing to let somebody decide something that was never their responsibility. And
Right.
that sets you up for not only living like I said, an inconsistent life, but having someone not equipped to handle something like that.
Right.
And so, it got really bad. It started out, with the manipulation, the mental stuff, and then it got really abusive. And for me, I accepted it because I believed that's what I was worth. That's what I deserved. And it ended up being physical. It ended up being a very violent and very physical relationship and abuse. And I was thrown around. I was, choked. I was held underwater. Sometimes if I was like in the bathtub, I would be held underwater. And we were living together, which was a really bad decision in the first place. But it's like I couldn't detach from him because I was like placing my identity in him. And so depending on the day, it would be, I'm worth something, and the next minute I'm not.
Right. And especially if it's that person that is filling that void of
Yes.
how you find your worth.
Yeah.
So it's like you're in it, but it's you don't want to let it go because this person is validating, hey, you're worth something. But at the same time, they're degrading you, they're abusing you, they're verbally and physically harming you.
Yeah. And I think like for me, I didn't talk about it to really anybody. And so through that, I started kind of beginning to self-sabotage myself. I started cutting. That was the way that I would release my emotional pain because it was so strong.
Now, cutting, I mean, for our listening audience, can you kind of...
Yeah, for cutting, I mean, I was really like a person who would self-sabotage my way in like cutting my forearms or with a razor blade or something sharp because it helped me focus off of the emotional pain that I was feeling into the physical pain. And for me, that was a relief because I had been holding emotional pain all day. Right. So, it was a very interesting experience to be, because I would never see myself being that far down to where you would actually harm yourself.
Right.
You would let somebody else harm you, and then that in turn lets you harm yourself. And it was like, wow, I'm really going down this dark, dark path.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, as we're talking, I hear the codependency. That's the immediate word I think of. Because if you're already, I mean, from swim class to school, which I'm sorry, I mean, adolescence is just a hard time in itself.
Yeah.
And then you compound that with trying to find a relationship because you need someone to kind of keep you stable, but that person isn't stable themselves, so to speak. And then it's kind of that constant spiral. But you have, I mean, by the grace of God, I mean, it's one of those things where I tell people that you have to almost hit near bottom. I'm not going to say full bottom, but you're pretty close to it. Yeah,
I would definitely agree with that. And that was actually not only a near bottom before the, final finale, which I'll talk about in a minute, but, I got very suicidal. And I thought, if I could just, I wanted to escape life. I didn't want to escape the pain anymore. I wanted to just be done.
Right.
And so I would think of a way to, take my life and really just saw my life as worthless and not worth anything. And I was basing off of how he saw my life because I thought he knew better than I did about myself. Wow.
I don't know if you picked up on that, but it's that to see someone as that completer. And it's tough for me because, I mean, that's why I said in the previous show is that if you're trying to find your worth in someone else, that's one, it's putting a lot of pressure on that person because that person may not know themselves all that well. And now you're kind of putting the expectation, well, I need you to fix me.
Yeah.
And the thing is that because that person's been through some hurts themselves, and I mean, like an example with that relationship, I don't know his backstory.
Right.
But probably chances are there were some hurts or experiences he had that kind of just made it seem like this was okay.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Extremely. And I think for me, it's really in that experience of being, shattered together and not have anything to help put those pieces together can be a very scary life. I mean, you don't know the outcome. You don't know where it's going. It's this constant storm. You're not anchored in anything in the sea. You're just constantly being tossed by these waves of inconsistency in yourself. And trying to, I want to deal with this pain or this hurt this way, and that'll fix the problem. And it's all these falsified fixes, that don't fix anything in yourself. They actually bring more destruction, and they open up another wound. And it's just this constant chain of wounds, and you need to find that healing. And it's like, where is that?
Right.
And that's why I started after this main point I'm about to talk about, this journey of what is that placed in? Right. And where should I go with that and finding my true value and my true worth? Because I don't believe that this is it, that we're meant to live a life like this.
Wow. Aspen, I mean, as we're wrapping up today, can you come back for part 2? Because, I mean, we've just started talking.
Yes, I would love to.
Wow. Thank you. Because, I mean, this is something that is close to me because, I mean, any person that's going through verbal, physical, whatever type of abuse that is, it's not all right. It's not okay. And I say that because I know it's not that easy to tell someone that's standing on the outside, hey, that's not okay. But when you're in the midst of it, hey, it beats the alternative, which sometimes for some people, it's suicide.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, folks, again, you've been listening to the Keep It Real Row podcast. And remember that you matter to someone no matter what. And more importantly, you matter to God. I'll catch you later.